In 2025, SB19 didn't just climb the charts, they quietly disrupted how the global music industry defines success. Behind closed doors, Billboard insiders, label strategists, and chart analysts kept circling the same question. How did a Filipino group with no Western machine behind them outperform acts backed by million-dollar marketing budgets? This wasn't luck. It wasn't fandom hype alone, and it definitely wasn't algorithm magic. According to a Billboard insider, SB19's rise in 2025 exposed a truth the industry rarely admits, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Want to know the next SB19 before anyone else does? Like, share, and subscribe. We break down the music industry the insiders won't tell you about. For years, SB19 existed at the edges of Western industry awareness. They were mentioned, shared, occasionally charting, quietly dismissed as international noise. That label vanished in 2025, not because of one viral hit, but because internal Billboard data stopped behaving the way analysts expected. SB19 began triggering alerts for a reason most fans never see. Their engagement to stream ratio was wrong in the best possible way. They had fewer passive listeners, but far more full-track completions, higher replay density, comment activity that didn't spike and disappear, but stayed consistent week after week. Inside Billboard's performance dashboards, SB19 kept appearing in places normally reserved for acts with major US label backing, not public charts, internal reports, the ones used to forecast touring demand, long-term revenue, and audience loyalty. Their name kept surfacing with a note analysts rarely attach to pop acts: non-anomalous consistency. Public charts show who's loud. Internal metrics reveal who's durable. SB19 crossed that line quietly and then decisively. That was the moment the industry conversation changed. Not who are they, but how did this happen without the usual machinery? Billboard didn't just notice SB19, it recalibrated how it measured them. Calling SB19 an overnight success isn't just inaccurate, it's intellectually lazy. That narrative survives because Western media tends to measure history from the moment it starts paying attention. Everything before that is conveniently erased. In reality, SB19's 2025 breakthrough was the visible payoff of nearly a decade of compounding work, relentless training, creative risk-taking, and a level of self-production most pop acts never touch. While many groups were assembled quickly to chase trends, SB19 was built slowly, skills first, identity second, recognition last. And in 2025, the data finally caught up. Billboard insiders familiar with artist development noticed something unusual in SB19's trajectory. There were no artificial spikes fueled by massive ad spend, no abrupt stylistic pivots designed to chase charts. Instead, there was continuity, a sound that evolved naturally, performances that sharpened over time, and an identity that grew more defined with each release. That kind of progress rarely excites press releases, but it shows up unmistakably in long-term data. Most pop careers are built fast: high exposure, high burn, short shelf life. SB19 was built deep. The members weren't just performers, they were creators with real control over their music, message, and direction. That autonomy didn't produce instant explosions, but it generated something far more valuable: resilience. By 2025, Billboard wasn't impressed by how quickly SB19 rose, but by how long they had been climbing without falling. That's the line between hype and a career. Around the same time, raw streaming totals stopped being the flex they once were. Billboard analysts had already adjusted their internal weighting, quietly downgrading passive streams and upgrading something much harder to manufacture: engagement depth. Anyone can press play. Very few stay. Even fewer return. This is where SB19 broke the model. Their data showed unusually high completion rates, listeners finishing full tracks instead of dropping off after the opening seconds. Replay density was strong, but more importantly, stable. Songs didn't spike and vanish, they stayed in rotation. Saves climbed at rates typically associated with legacy acts, while comment activity remained elevated long after release week, evidence of dialogue, not just consumption. When SB19's engagement stack was placed beside bigger global acts with far larger budgets, the contrast was uncomfortable. Some artists posted 10 times the streams with a fraction of the behavioral commitment. SB19's audience didn't behave like consumers, they behaved like stakeholders. They defended releases, decoded lyrics, promoted performances without prompts or campaigns. One Billboard insider summarized the shift bluntly: "They don't listen, they participate." That distinction matters. Participation signals belief, and belief predicts longevity. For fans, the realization landed hard. Every replay, every save, every comment wasn't just support, it was data, and data is leverage. SB19 didn't game the system, their audience became part of it. Once those metrics became impossible to ignore, Western labels did what they always do. They tried to replicate the effect. New groups were launched with authentic branding. Social engagement teams ballooned. Behind-the-scenes content was manufactured at scale. None of it worked the same way, because SB19 was never a formula. It was a foundation. Money can amplify attention, but it can't manufacture belief. Algorithms respond to behavior, not intention, and audiences can tell when authenticity is staged. By 2025, the industry was already deep into algorithm fatigue. Listeners burned out on perfectly optimized, emotionally hollow releases designed to satisfy metrics rather than meaning. SB19 arrived as the counterweight, imperfect, human, fully invested.
The greatest differentiator wasn't reach, it was creative autonomy, something labels can't purchase at scale. SB19 controlled their sound, their message, and their pace. They weren't reacting to trends, they were responding to their audience in real time. That feedback loop didn't just build engagement, it built trust, and trust compounds. Inside Billboard, analysts began using a word rarely applied to pop acts: anti-fragile. Pressure didn't weaken SB19, it refined them. Each challenge increased loyalty instead of eroding it. Where most acts fractured under expectation, SB19 consolidated belief. Western labels learned the hard way. You can replicate aesthetics, strategies, even release schedules, but belief has to be earned. That's why SB19 couldn't be cloned. Their global rise in 2025 reinforced a truth the industry often ignores. You don't have to erase identity to reach the world. While many non-English acts attempt to westernize for broader appeal, SB19 achieved something far rarer: emotional translation without dilution. Their lyrics, storytelling, and performances communicated universal experiences: ambition, struggle, triumph, without cultural compromise. Billboard analysts noticed a critical pattern. Engagement wasn't limited by language. Completion rates and replay metrics held strong across non-Filipino speaking markets. Resonance ran deeper than comprehension. Social data told the same story. Fans weren't asking SB19 to adapt, they were adapting to SB19, learning lyrics, sharing interpretations, creating content that amplified Filipino identity rather than flattening it. The model echoed early K-pop globalization, but with a key distinction. SB19's authenticity wasn't exported, it was recognized. Filipino identity became a strength, signaling uniqueness instead of niche obscurity. One insider put it plainly: they didn't chase the market, The market adjusted. That distinction creates devotion, not casual consumption. SB19 didn't just cross borders, they redefined how identity and accessibility coexist in modern pop.